Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
yeah, and Julie's just gonna start anyway, so by the time, Mark gets here, we can start the business.
Okay, hello everybody. Thank you for coming tonight. This is the Historic Landmark Preservation Commission monthly meeting, in case you're in the wrong room. A few notes before we begin. Exits are through the door and down the stairs. In case of an emergency, fire emergency, please do not use the elevator. And bathrooms are through the council chambers and on the right. And if you could please silence your cell phones, and any conversation should be taken out of the room. I'll go ahead and introduce myself. And ask my fellow commissioners to do the same. I'm Marissa Marbelli. I'm vice chair. I am leading the meeting until our chair, Mark Grumblatt, appears.
I'm Kevin McAvoy. I'm a commission member.
Calvin Beer.
Julie Edelson Safford.
Jane Gervingham.
Leslie Melvin.
Thank you. So a few changes to the agenda, just the order of the agenda, if you've had a chance to look at it. On the first thing we have on the agenda is Julie Noble speaking about the streetlights, and then next we have the discussion of the ordinance. If it's okay with my colleagues, I'd like to move the discussion of the ordinance to the end of the meeting, since most people are here for applications. It's no need to keep them waiting longer than necessary. So we will go ahead and do the adoption of the minutes, open forum, close the forum, and then we will discuss the streetlights. Does anybody have any objection to that? Okay, all right, thank you. So that said, we have 2 months of meeting minutes to approve, one being the March meeting minutes, and last month, September 2018. Does anybody have any changes?
No.
No. Did everybody have a chance to review them? Okay. Does anybody care to make a motion?
The only thing I would say is that I wasn't in the commission in March, so I'm going to have to want to do the
Okay.
motions separately because I'll have to be abstained on it.
Okay, so let's, can someone do a motion to approve the March 2018 meeting minutes?
I motion to approve the March 2018 minutes.
Anybody second? Okay, all in favor? And I noted that
One
Kevin
abstention.
abstains. Okay, can anybody approve the September meeting minutes for me?
I motion to approve the September
Thank you,
meeting
Jane.
minutes.
I second.
Julie seconds. Okay, all in favor? Okay, I will now open the forum for public speaking. I ask that anybody who wish to address the commission with general comments to limit their comments to just 2 minutes. We have a lot of business to get through. That said, does anybody have any comments they'd like to submit to the commission?
Maybe I will. So I just passed out,
Can you introduce yourself?
oh, sorry, Tanya Garment, 102 Wirt Street. When I just passed out some information about the Kingstonian, I wanted to point out that you probably are aware of that they're going to present their plans to the planning board at the next meeting. And as of yet, I don't think that there's been any organization so that the HLBC would be part of that meeting. So if you never do get invited, I recommend going because it'll be the first official introduction to it. But we did get a lot of information from the DRI, and so I copied that and I put a letter there just pointing out things that I think people should be aware of. And then just the 2, I have a clipping of when Herzog's first turned it into their business from the newspaper, and a picture from picturesque Ulster County of what the building was like before that.
All right, thank you. Anybody else? I close the open forum and get into general business. Joanna, would you mind coming up here and having a seat?
So I will be brief. I wanted to come before the commission to give you an update on the LED street lighting project. It's not a project that any commissions or boards have to approve. It is a city project, but I'm coming here to tell you about it, and if anyone has any questions, to address those where we are in the project so far. So I am serving as project manager for the city of Kingston on this project. I'm the sustainability coordinator for the city. And in March of 2017, the city of Kingston purchased all of our streetlights from Central Hudson. That was the first step towards retrofitting our lighting. And subsequent to that, and actually at that same time, we were working with the Mid-Hudson Streetlight Consortium for several years, who was doing a big study and bringing together communities around the valley for several years to understand how to retrofit streetlights. In the meantime, New York Power Authority, NYPA, came to us with a very attractive offer for retrofitting our lights, and they're doing this around the state. There was a big push from the governor to prioritize retrofitting LED lights, and so NYPA was able to make a very attractive purchase of many thousand lights and to then start to approach municipalities to retrofit them. So we are working with New York Power Authority and specifically with Wendell Energy consultants. They also did an energy audit for us several years ago. So this is not the first time we've worked with them. But what has happened so far is the project started with an audit. So Wendell went out, and over the course of a very short period of time, just a couple of weeks, they gathered all of the information of all of our street lights and park lights in the city of Kingston. And so they gathered what is the condition of it, what is how many lumens does it have, how many kelvins does it have, how bright is it, what color is it, all these pieces of information. And they put that into a GIS audit. At this point, they've given us a PDF map of that data. They're still ground truthing and pulling out any anomalies of that data. So they anticipated we would have about 2,400, and at the end number came up about 50 more than that or so. So we have about 2,500 lights. And and the audit only ended just in the end of the summer. So they have sent us a PDF, and I may have circulated that. If you haven't gotten it, I can circulate it to you. But the next step is that they are going to finalize that information. We found a couple errors in the data. There's some question about some of the Kingston Housing Authority properties as to who owns them and who manages them, who pays for them. And of course, we don't want to, nor can we retrofit any lights that aren't city's lights. So that is being ironed out right now. And the next step is for them to build up the design, which is why I'm here. So currently, the plan is to retrofit all of the lights in a 1-for-1 direct replacement for each light, such that the light will be switched to an LED light, and if it needs to be retrofitted, the housing within it will be retrofitted, and if the entire thing needs to be replaced, it will be replaced. And whatever it looks like now, it will look like the same thing in the future. So the design will be the same. So we have about 6 different designs around the city. And on this very kind of simple map, all the red is kind of standard Cobra head street lights, the really tall ones that lean over, some flood lighting, and then the blue, which is concentrated, as you can see uptown here, along Broadway and then downtown, and I have zoomed in pictures of that as well, shows where the more decorative lighting is. So that's things like acorn lighting and post top lighting and teardrop lighting, so sort of more fancy, not big Cobra head ones. There are LED retrofit options there are hundreds of options that will be exactly the same. The color of the post will be the same, the style will all be the same, and the light will be retrofitted so that it is much, much, much more efficient. We will save thousands of dollars immediately, hundreds of thousands of dollars immediately. The process is currently the case that within the next week or so, they will be presenting us a preliminary design, and that's going to show us page by page a design manual that says this is what your light is currently, this is what it's going to look like. They're also going to be putting up examples around town of each type, so we can say, okay, there's a Cobra existing, that's what the other one's going to look like. That will happen one of each type throughout the city. The decision was made across the board to go with 3,000 Kelvin, which is, it's the color temperature, so there's a couple different words that we use when we're talking about lighting. The wattage is the amount of energy, the lumens is the brightness of it. The lumens are going to stay the same, so however bright they are now, they're going to be the same brightness. I will say that LED lighting spreads the light out more laterally, so right now, if you live near a street light, it's likely coming into your house, some of it. The street light now will be directed more downward, it will be less going up into the sky, so more dark skies compliant and more efficient. There is an opportunity in the historic areas if there is interest to go into 2700 Kelvin, but that would be making an exception on any of the lights if there was, if you felt like there was interest in doing so. Currently we're planning on going through for 3,000 throughout. They will be dimmable, so if we needed to dim any of them either over a long period of time or over a short period of time, we could do so. And the retrofit will take place over the course of 3 to 4 months through the winter, and it will be completed in the spring. It's going to be done by we will be going out to bid once we have the design, and then a contractor will be making all the changes over the course of 3 to 4 months. They're also going to be, yeah, I guess that's probably it. We're putting together right now, we have a frequently asked questions form that we're going to be having available through the city if people have specific questions about something. We will be having weekly meetings throughout the construction. We'll have a GIS database throughout the construction so we can see them as they're being retrofitted. We're in communications with public safety folks to understand if there's any areas that are currently overlit or underlit, if we need to specifically address any specific areas. This is a great project for us, not only for energy efficiency, but just understanding what lights we own, what lights we do not own, which ones are out or have been out for a long period of time, and making sure that we are paying for what we need to pay for and not paying for what we do not need to pay for. So I'm happy once I get the design manual and the specs to come back or to share that all with you electronically if you're interested in seeing it. But I just wanted to kind of give you an update on the project and where it is. And if you have any questions moving forward or concerns, then you can reach out to myself at the city. And I'd be happy to talk to you about it.
Thank you for coming.
You're welcome.
Are we allowed to?
One question I have, and it's really from a resident in historic district who approached me a couple months ago about the possibility of changing the lamp, the actual style of the street lamp in the historic district. That it was, I think he was referring to a Cobra head in his district. He was thinking that was not appropriate for the historic district. So is that something that you're considering more?
That is not something that's currently within the scope of the project. If you all wanted to decide to change the light within the historic district or make a change on that, you could tell us and then we would retrofit it 1 for 1. This project is taking what is existing and retrofitting it 1 for 1. So if it's a Cobra head next to an acorn next to a teardrop, it's being replaced with a Cobra head next to an acorn next to a teardrop. So if there's any interest in changing the design of certain lights, that is not part of the scope. I will say, there's an exception to that, and that is that the Broadway corridor, all the lighting is going to get redone as per the Broadway Streetscape project, and also the 587 lighting is going to get changed, the 587 interchange. But those determinations are being made by those projects. The DOS is making the decision about the 587 interchange, and GPI and the consultants with the city are making the decision about the Broadway lighting, and those lighting will be replaced with LED when they get put in.
So so the design of the lights, that's settled. We can't go back and say, oh, it would be nice to do the acorn style lamp in the historic district, correct?
As part of this project, they're just taking what exists and changing to something new. So if and I don't know the process of what we have to do to change a light in the city decides, I don't know.
No, I'm only asking because I had the tech approach me and saying, we need to change the lights. And I was like, I don't even know the process. And then here 2 months later, we're talking about changing the lights.
Yeah. So this is just changing like the light bulb itself. Now that we all know all the lights, that's different. It was different in the case before when Central Hudson owned them all, many of them, but we do own them now. So I can look into what the process is for changing the light. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I'm thinking I don't have any study what is currently in the historic district, so I can't even speak from point of knowledge right now.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
just asking a question.
Okay.
I see if anybody else in the question has a question, and then open it to questions and comments.
Yeah, I have a question.
Ellen, Julie, and then Ellen.
Yeah, Julie.
What is the current color temperature of the street?
It's all over the map. Most of our lights are high pressure sodium, and that is sort of a yellowish white light. The color temperature of the new lighting will be warm white, so very, very similar. However, as you drive around the city now, you can see all different color temperatures. I will also say about 252 and counting lights have been replaced so far by the city. As lights go out, we are replacing them through DPW with LED lighting, but it varies. If you just look down at any street, there's really no uniformity, which will also help with this process.
I thought that was just dealing with the functionality of the lights themselves. They all work. It's just that they have different color temperature.
They have different color temperatures. Some are aging and not working as well, or flickering or whatever is the case, but this will provide uniformity across the city.
Okay, Alan.
This is related to color temperature. It's very exciting that you stated 3000 K. That's great. And I'm wondering if there are choices regarding color rendering index, or do you know that aspect of it?
No, but I can follow up with you on it. I can ask
No,
about it.
higher the better. In other words, yeah.
Okay.
Alan, what was your question?
I just asked if there are options regarding color rendering index. Older LEDs tend to be around 80, but if newer technology gets it up into the 90s, the higher the better it is.
I can say from firsthand, not necessarily about LED, the aging of the LED, but I had an apartment in Brooklyn, had the old style high sodium, high pressure sodium, and then they changed it, and then the next week I looked at the window that the light was crisp, and it wasn't glaring. It was beautiful.
Yes,
It changed my mood. Very much.
it's
Okay,
There's a lot of
moving
things
up
to
to
say.
the public.
Hi guys. I just had a couple questions.
Can you say your name?
Oh, sorry, Barbara Scott, 66 First Street, Kingston. I missed what you said about the 2700 exception. Was that something that you could apply for if you wanted the 2700 Kelvin versus?
in the historic areas, if there was a mandate from, from
So-
this
so
commission
going
or,
through channels.
or, yes.
I see.
So
I
it
see.
won't be,
Right.
it won't be a one, for if a neighbor says, I want 2700, it will be that. It's going to be blanket across the city, so we have uniformity and we're not driving and seeing all
Right.
different. There will possibly be options for difference in wattage. So the color will be the same, but there could be some where
Oh.
the wattage could be different, and so individuals will probably set up some sort of mechanism, I'm talking with my back here, some sort of mechanism where there could be a slight change in wattage,
Uh-huh.
but probably not that much. We're trying to save as much energy as possible, but that could be an option.
Right, right. Well, I'm actually more interested in dimmer lights, so would be not bringing them up. Is it also possible that there'll be any shields available for some of them?
So shielding will be done on a per request basis. They are, as I mentioned before, LED lighting inherently this is inherently more dark skies compliant, so it's directed down, it's directed laterally. So inherently to the project, there will be less overlighting than there is now. But if there are specific instances where folks are concerned and we requested shields, that would be an add-on to the project after the full retrofit, but we will entertain that option.
Oh, okay, and so there would be a process?
Yes.
Okay, and, what was my other question? How does the dimmable work?
It is programmable from one central location, so I can't think of a situation where we would need to, but if suddenly we wanted to just dim all the lights, we could have our IT person suddenly dim them all.
Oh, so it's not like, I live on a very small street that is completely overlit, and even the Mid-Hudson Consortium said that. So is it possible, dimmable, so we could request, like,
On that
on
street.
that one street?
If
Okay.
you, yeah, if you, yes. you can-
Okay.
And if
That's
you
what
want
I
to
wondered.
follow up with me separately,
Okay.
if there's been an identified area that is known to be overlit,
Okay,
please bring that to my attention and
great.
we can work that into the design.
Any other questions?
Hi, Tanya, 102 Ward Street, planning department. So the process of how it got to this point, I know that it started with the Mid-Hudson Lighting Consortium, and then it was basically impossible to get information on what the process was within the city. And my concern is that it never came to the historic district because it would have been an opportunity to change out the whole light. And I know that some of them, or at least as far as I understand, that the light bulbs is not just as simple as changing a light and putting those light bulbs in a new light. You'll have to scrap the whole thing. So a big opportunity was lost here by not including the historics in the process up until this point.
I don't think any opportunity was lost. We haven't even developed the design yet, so I think
So
that.
it could be not one for one, it could be, they could before it gets swapped out, it's not too late to say, oh, you know what, on these streets, we need to change over to historic lighting that's below 20 feet.
That would be outside of the scope of this project. If the historic commission or commissions wanted to change out lighting,
But that would be twice, changing it, sorry.
it would have to be either
Changing it.
very soon prior to
Oh.
this process, and then we would change it through this process one for one, or if it was going to be changed after the fact, it would be changed
I see.
one for one. And to the point of, it's not just simply replacing the bulb, that is true. In some cases it is that, and in other cases it is a retrofit. In some cases, you're taking the entire Cobra head or the entire whatever it is and replacing with an entirely new Cobra head with this technology in it. And in other places, if it's a specific style that there's not a direct one-for-one replacement, there's a retrofit kit that changes the lighting within that existing housing, so the housing is exactly the same. So to your point of changing any lighting outside of, from what it is now, again, I don't know what that process is, and all I know is that this is a one-for-one project, and we are at the beginning of it, so.
Oh, it's still the beginning, so it's not too late to say, whoa, on the historic district, if it was decided that there were some opportunities that shouldn't be missed.
Yes, I will say that the design, the 90% design, that nearly done design is going to be coming before us in the next couple of weeks, which we will review, and so if people have specific concerns about specific locations or lighting, you should speak with me about it.
Okay. Will there be a public presentation of the design?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
I don't know what their plan is with that.
Okay, so they should just reach out to you.
Yes.
Okay.
Let me see the, okay. Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm like commandeering your whole meeting here. Which one do you want to see? This one. That's the zoom in. And I don't have the digital data yet, so I can't speak to any specific light, if you have concerns about a specific light.
The one area that did occur to me was the Fair Street Historic District. I was looking for blue along that. Julie, are you seeing Fair Street covered with any, it's the
I can see
more
Fair Street there.
industrial?
Here, Fair Street's on the
Okay.
You know, because I lived on Fair Street at one time, I remember, this doesn't have anything to do with your city lighting, but as residents before I moved there, they were given the option of buying lamp posts to go in their front yards to provide extra lighting and kind of a sense of the history of the street. And ours was broken when we bought the house, so we purchased this Victorian lamp post that matched the other ones on the street. So a lot of them still exist, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah. This is Fair
I
Street.
have just curiosity, a question. You were saying something about the Dark Skies Initiative,
Yeah.
so is that sort of, this project is underwrite, it's sort of based upon that idea?
It's not, I'm just saying it casually.
Oh, okay.
You know, we have LED lighting is, since it is directed down, it has less uplighting
Right.
inherently.
Right.
So we don't, this isn't affiliated with any Dark Skies Initiative, I'm just saying it is going to be a darker sky because of it.
Was there any kind of audit done about light pollution in a bigger sense as far as the city?
No,
or-
night lighting or anything like that, there was not. This is just, you know, what do we have, what exists.
Thank you.
I would love to have that kind of information to understand like how much night lighting did we have prior and then what will be after. I mean, we have to do that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you. Okay, since the chair is here, I'm going to hand over the
I get to-
imaginary gavel to him.
All right, and do you have the agenda for me?
I have my own personal agenda.
All right, so who's up
The
next?
next, we have item 1, 38 Main Street, Scott DUTTON, signage and paint color.
Okay.
And I will have to recuse myself since I work with Scott on other projects. I am taking the minutes, so I would like to sit at the table so I can hear and take minutes.
Yes.
Good evening.
Hello.
Feels like Groundhog Day, talking about paint colors at 38 Main Street.
Scott, can you just give me 1 second?
We've gone from black to white.
Just give me 1 second.
Sure. Some months ago, this commission approved some exterior improvements to the building, which included paint color. It was almost black. It was HC 90 or 91. Subsequently, one of the
I have to recuse
ownerships.
myself.
Just 1 second.
You want to take minutes? Oh,
Julia's going to recuse herself also.
Oh, okay.
Then I need to take minutes.
A potential family relationship with.
fine.
You're fine?
Scott's
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
So there are a number of people involved in the ownership and operating structure, and the owner of the cafe asked if we relook at the colors, so that we are now proposing a much lighter color. It's not white, it's just slightly off-white. And if you look at the pictures of this panel, which appears in the picture, we think that it picks up the granite in the sills nicely and also works a little better with the bluestone. It is a Ferro and Ball paint. If you're not familiar with Ferro and Ball, it's the most expensive paint on the planet. Over $100 a gallon.
I bought a book about it, and when I saw the prices, I said, I'll have Lowe's mix it.
Wow. All right. Any other questions from the commission?
Can you refresh our memory about the context? Where is it going?
Sure. Here's the, Alan, here's a copy of the packet that was approved some months ago. And this is for all of the wood painted elements on the ground floor, Fair and Main, including the potting shed.
Oh, okay.
We're not able to paint the second and third story because there are a number of vinyl windows in there. So over time, as they get replaced with wood windows, then that might become an option, but right now it's not an option. But it's close. I think having something that's a little bit heavier on the ground floor, but not too heavy, will work. And signage, we'll have to wait. You'll see me next month or the month after. They're still debating the size of the chicken in the logo.
All right. Any additional questions for the applicant? All right, I'll entertain a motion. All right.
Do we have to read the whole, we did, don't we?
Here,
Yeah, I have it here, but I'm not going to roll call.
are you gonna motion?
Yeah, I'll move. but-
All right, I have a motion, please.
All right, I motion that the Historic Landmark Preservation Commission find as fact that the proposed colors, that's
Color.
Herbeck Stone.
Probeck Stone 275, and that was Farrow and Ball.
Farrow.
Farrow, I'm sorry.
Farrow.
Yes,
And Ball.
And Ball.
BA.
Farrow and Ball.
Hello.
As presented to the commission, is appropriate for this commercial building, will have no adverse impact on the historic district, and will find in fact that we'll find in fact, I think that's it, right? Okay. Based on the preceding finding of fact, I motion that the commission issue a preservation notice of action to the applicant for the colors aforementioned as presented. Do we have a second?
Do I have a second? Alan seconds. All those in favor? Aye. Oop. All opposed?
Oh, wait, I shouldn't vote, sorry, I was meant to, I was just like.
It was too automatic. And I'd like to note you recused.
It's fine as it says.
Sorry, that's my fault. Can we do that again?
All right. Any opposed? No. So we have approvals from, it carries 5-0 with 2 recusals.
Perfect, thank you.
And I'm going to hand this off to you, so you've got the notation on the back. And do you have an original application here for me to sign, or do I need to stop by? I'll have to. Okay, so I'm going to have to stop by and re-sign. Let Laura know. Let me hand those off to you for this. Thank you, Tom.
Tom, I thought I had submitted one. If I didn't, I'll backfill the file.
Maker will be down there, but it wasn't given.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great. And I'll probably see you next month.
All
for
right.
signage.
Sounds good. Looking forward to seeing what the chicken is actually doing.
Chicken looks great. It's either 10% bigger or 10% smaller. Either way, it looks great.
Wonderful. All right.
Tyson knows how good it looks. What's that?
Do you need these back?
I don't need them, but if you're going to shred them, I'll take them.
No, sure.
Okay, so next we have First Reformed Church. You want to come up and have a seat? And to recap, if you do mind if I introduce you?
Sure, please.
Because I had the meeting minutes here from last month. So we're going to talk about 2 applications, 52 Main and 272 Wall Street, the church itself. That's the roof project and the stoop. And I'll just read what the minutes were so we can get up to date. So at last month's meeting, Reverend Dr. Renee House discussed the church's plans for repairing the roof. Work will include replacing the copper roof over the main sanctuary, restoring the slate roof over the rear addition, replacing vent stacks with ridge vents, removing bird deterrent netting to return eaves at return eaves, and increasing the slope of that molding to prevent future nesting by birds. And painting all wood elements, including the clock base, in its historic dark color, urbane bronze. I have the colors watched here with me today. And then regarding 52 Main Street, the applicant explained that the church does not have immediate plans to address the stone stoop, repairing the stone stoop, which is currently covered with a temporary unapproved wood stoop. it had to be done quickly in the wintertime for safety reasons, and the church doesn't currently have funds to fix the stone stoop, but the plan is to eventually fix the stone stoop. And last month, we noted that we didn't have, Deputy Fire Chief Campiano explained that the church had failed to apply for a building permit and that his department has yet to receive an HLPC application for roof work at the church. He noted that scaffolding is already installed at the church and work appears to be occurring on site without proper permits. Deputy Corporation Counsel Chief Dan Bernstein advised the HLPC not to grant approval for the work before an agreement is reached regarding the stoop. So that was last month. We, since after that meeting, did locate the application and drawings that were submitted April 12, 2018 for the church. And submitted again September 6, 2018. So I don't feel like we need to go through all the details of the roof again. I just read that, we reviewed it together. The question before us is, what is the plan for fixing the stoop?
The plan for fixing this.
Can you introduce yourself?
I'm Rob Sweeney. My position at the church is as property steward, the Ministry of Property Stewardship. And we're currently putting all of our efforts, of course, into the church itself. You know, we are the longest institution, you know, from New York City to Albany. You know, we've been around longer than the city and longer than the county and longer than the country. So we do have a vested interest in history, and that tradition is something that's we pride ourselves on. But I have to say that, you know, history and preserving history is a bit of an expense. And as much as we justify doing as much historic preservation work as possible, because we feel like we are the stewardships of this building, and we have anchored the Stockade District when other folks, even the city, has not respected its history. The Dutch Church has respected its history, and we still want to maintain that. So I want to come and give you the most confident assurance that we are going to do a good job. However, the bureaucracy, we did get a little tangled in, and I want to just apologize for that. There was a couple of misunderstandings as we went through it of the process. But that was clarified, and once that was clarified, it says, okay, we're good, and we're trying to get ourselves into compliance. So we weren't acting obstructant to the government or the powers that be. So we do humbly apologize for that. But again, come with good assurance that we want to do a good job maintaining the historic structure of the church.
And I'm happy, and I think we'd like to understand a little bit more about the interior functioning of how decisions get made within the church.
Yes.
You have sort of, you're a point person.
Yes.
Is there a committee or
There's a
commission
governing
behind
body
you?
of the consistory. That is the ruling body of the church. Now, they can appoint people to do their business. I have been appointed to do that. The Reverend Renee House was also here. She is also, she is the CEO, so to speak, of the church. So she's able to do that as well. But at this point and through this project, I have been appointed to work with the architects and with the contractors, and being that body that goes back to the consistory to give reports, as I will give a report on Sunday to what's discussed here.
Okay.
But they are responsible fiscally as a group. And
So give us a sense of, I know funds come in through the auxiliary buildings that are not the church,
That's right.
Like the stoop we're discussing.
That's right.
How is, can you explain to me how money might be built up to do this sort of
Absolutely.
job?
So there's budgets, and But there also, I would just like to sort of state for the record and those people who are hearing, that the church pays a good deal of taxes. So when we're talking about 52 Main, we're talking about a tax bill that's approaching $20,000. So on that piece of land over there. So to say that, you know, we have expenses, really, I state that to say like, so some
Like
of the
any
income-
landlord,
right,
yes.
so there's the expenses to go with that, but there's also building maintenance. But within the past 5 years, there has been new roofs put on those buildings and things, and the money that was allotted to that, it just simply wasn't in the budget. But most importantly, when we decided to put the wood stoop on, it was in January when it became very much of a hazard. It was extremely cold weather that forced the stones, the water was gotten between them and literally forced it out by a couple of inches and made the slope of the step to be a hazardous situation. And so therefore we acted to correct the hazard, and also in a way that the stoop is fastened in no way to the stone, so that can be completely removed and trashed, and that when we go to reset those stones, we'll be able to pull them out and then put them back into place level in the proper way. But the masons weren't able to do that. But the bid that we had on it was about $8,000. So right now, we're just concentrating our efforts, since the safety element was corrected, just to put our focuses back on the church. So the money and the money that does come from those properties goes to absolutely sustaining ministry in Kingston. So that goes back into the maintenance of the church. And, you know, the church is more used than City Hall. You know, I don't have to remind anyone who's alive in Kingston to know that this building gets a whole lot of use. So therefore, it needs a whole lot of maintenance. And so the money that is generated, which is not a huge sum of money, of course goes back into the church budget.
Okay, so, all right, so,
I think our chief concern with the temporary stoop is that it kind of becomes permanent and
Right.
like 5 years down the road.
Right. I understand that.
And that people in the community
We'll then
view
look
that
at it
as,
and
oh,
say,
that's
they did
appropriate,
it,
they
yes.
can do it, and then
I
so
agree.
we don't want to encourage.
Absolutely. Shall we paint it bright orange and say like safety steps or something, or
Yeah,
temporary?
and I think that would be counterproductive from our point
I
of
think
view.
you need to articulate a plan to address it.
Right.
In terms of how you're gonna work with the building department to get approval for what is there now, how it's gonna get inspected, and how long you plan to leave it there. Okay, there needs to be a plan, okay? You
I
can't
will-
just, you
yes.
know, go
Yes.
forward with it there, you know, without the appropriate permits or, you know, review or inspection by the building department, and then come to the commission and ask for approval on, you know, a collateral project across the street.
I think we're trying to get a sense of scheduling from
Right.
Or apply for hardship, you know, commission from the commission to leave it as is, but just leaving it, where there's clearly a violation of the code, in that no permission was sought or granted, and then come to the commission and ask for permission to do a different project.
Right.
Just
I could
doesn't work.
imagine the liability we would incur had we went through the process. Could you? Could you imagine how quickly in January we would have got approval to do what we did?
Well, steps don't deteriorate overnight, though.
Right, and given that, we are dealing with the situation as you presented
Right.
to us.
Right.
So we need to understand how likely it is that we have something that we would be forced to pursue a violation on, or we have some kind of rational schedule that seems workable from the church's point of view.
Right.
To make sure that the stairs that are now hidden will be reset and brought back into use. That's
Right.
our long-term goal.
Exactly.
I think we are not looking to create a hazard. We are looking to end a hazard. We here have the duty to think in terms of decades, sometimes centuries.
Right.
You're familiar with that
Right.
because you're working on the church.
Exactly.
We have a similar mindset, but
Right.
we cannot just let it be on a
Right.
simple assurance.
I understand that. And I would say that we proven like due diligence by the way we achieved the safety measure without doing damage to the historic structure. I think there is at least some, you know, that.
And we're grateful
Right.
that you, I mean, damaging you would have had to report a violation right away. It appears to be, and it's been described as temporary.
Right.
The question is,
Shall I apply for a building permit for those particular steps and then have it approved and say, okay, they're safe, but with the understanding that they are temporary? I believe we could probably set a date. You know, we could put a year or so out on that. I would think that would be a generous enough time. But I would like to finish the roof project because there's been so many open things on the roof project that we're not sure where that budget was going to go, that we were afraid to spend funds on one project. The roof project is going to be done once. It should last 150 years. It's a lot of work to get that done. The stoop thing it's not in our eyes, and I understand you look at it differently, but in our eyes, this is a temporary thing. As soon as we get together, we'll get this right. We have every intentions to do it right. And so therefore, however you need to extract that from us, we're obliging to that, if you can recommend a way.
I think, and Dan, you'll want to double check me on this one, I think what we would be looking for is an application for the temporary steps that includes a sunset date that
Yeah, okay. But would you apply that, or would I? I mean, the
you would have to
census-
apply to the building department
Okay,
for that.
this application, but for 52 Main.
Yes,
Yeah,
okay.
that's the paperwork involved.
Okay, not the building permit application then? The landmarks commission or the building? Because that was another
I think we
thing.
kind of need to do both is the trick for you on this one. The building permit is what typically triggers the application to us.
Right.
You're getting these piled on top of each other, and I
Okay.
suggest
That's
we
not
need to
an
do them both simultaneously.
Right, okay.
Right, and if the claim is that the temporary steps that are non-compliant need to remain for a period of time because it's a financial hardship to address them, you have to file a hardship application setting forth what that hardship is and put that in front of this board so the board can say whether or not they accept that there's a hardship.
Okay.
All of that's in the code.
Can I also like pass the can around and ask for donations? Because that would also be very helpful, always appreciated. The steeple is not getting painted because the church doesn't have the money to paint the steeple. However, the base of the tower will. So do you think an organization who prides itself on making Kingston beautiful and a welcoming place, we're saying, look, we don't even have the money to do that, therefore the scaffolding all has to come down, and the next time we get the money, you know, but I will do my best.
That would be fine.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we have a plan to address the steps. And do you understand what we're asking for?
You're asking me to fill out both a landmarks application and a building permit application for the steps.
And then Dan's talking about the hardship.
Okay,
So-
that I don't know what
So in
that
our
is, but I'm
ordinance,
sure.
in our ordinance, we have a section for declaring hardship and what paperwork needs to be submitted. It's online, but an application whose preservation or reduction, proposed demolition or alteration has been denied, which technically we haven't denied it, may apply for relief on the grounds of hardship. So, Part B,
Yes.
so 4 or 5, Article 66, hardship, and this is within the zoning chapter. So zoning is 4 or 5.
Okay.
Here, paragraph B is the hardship application procedure.
Okay.
So.
All right, so I can look this up online, right?
And basically file the application, also prepare this documentation, then we can act on the stoop.
Right.
Right, and in essence, instead of requiring the application to be denied, you're asking for the board to waive the requirement for the preservation notice of action based on the hardship pending, the plan being submitted and it being addressed, at that point. And that holds off the city being in a position where there's a pending or an outstanding violation, because clearly we don't want to file an accusatory instrument and allege a violation of city code.
Right, okay.
Is it possible to get a copy of the elevations for the church emailed? Do we have a copy of that?
You've had them since April, and you have them again here, I mean,
We have the April application here.
and they were brought in September as well.
Do we have a copy of the
Yes,
plan?
it did, because I have a copy of it somehow.
Smaller format.
Right.
Same exact format.
Yeah,
It, like, that,
We can
we got it.
I think we should be
It'd be
able to
nice to have
scan it, or
Yeah.
you're better at this than I certainly.
It was my
I don't have my
understanding,
scanner.
honestly, that you would have all had that way back when and would have been able to look at them and not have to look at them first off when somebody came. That's how I thought the commission worked, and that was my confusion.
I think the
Right.
initial
I couldn't-
application predates my.
Okay, yeah, but nobody got them, so you don't feel left out. Because everyone, I would have thought that everyone would have gotten them back in April.
We got it, but the
Okay.
applicant never appeared.
No one showed up
Okay.
before us, so we
Okay.
didn't sort of
It got-
talk about them.
Okay, right. Yeah, and that's where we thought, as applicant, we were going to be told, which, like, okay,
Be
come to
slammed.
this meeting. We're ready for
Ah.
you, right? That's where the big confusion was. I didn't know, like, oh, you just appear, like, that sounds too informal. And you might have to lighten your load over the months or balance out projects, so you're gonna wait to this month, and that was my misunderstanding of the process. Even though the secretary at the building department, she literally did say, and you'll have to appear before landmarks, and I said, yes, of course, and smiled and walked out, of course. I had expected to. I didn't know I was expected to do it like that was the following Tuesday or do something like that. or
Otherwise, you have to wait
Thursday.
a full.
I got that. Jane clarified that to me eventually. So that was,
Okay, that's important to know.
yes.
All right. All right, so we have a plan for the stoop. Now, moving on to what needs to happen for the roof. Now, this is, do you have a pending building permit? All the paperwork is covered
Waiting
and
for
taken
approval
care
from
of?
the board so I can issue the building.
Okay, that's important to know. All
So,
right.
can we move ahead with approving that?
I believe we should.
We reviewed it in September. Does anybody have questions?
The Reverend went through a lot of detail. Is there anyone who needs anything reviewed from her appearance? All right, I will.
You had a well description of it.
So I'm just gonna basically.
I wasn't
read
even
that.
at the meeting, and I can approve that. Exactly
The
correct,
Reverend
so,
did a very good job.
yes,
of
she
walking
was
through.
coached.
And she's good at presentation.
Yes, that's why we hired her.
It's a good thing.
Okay, so I move that this commission find as fact that the project as proposed at 52 Main Street, the First Touch Reformed Church of Kingston, is appropriate. I'm sorry, I wasn't reading from my notes. Is compatible with the character of the historic district for the reasons that work is wholly restorative and necessary for the functioning of the building, that the work includes replacing the copper roof over the main sanctuary, replacing the slate roof over the rear addition, replacing the vent stacks with ridge vents, removing bird netting at return eaves, and increasing the slope of that molding to prevent future nesting, and painting all the wood elements, including the clock base, is historic. What was originally a dark color. The color proposed is urbane bronze, Sherwin-Williams color swatch 7048. Based on the preceding findings of fact, I move that this commission grant a preservation notice of action to the First Dutch Reformed Church, approving the proposal presented to our commission at our September 6th. Our September 2018 meeting.
Do I
Such
have it?
notice to be subject to the condition contained in the previous motion. Done.
All right. Do I have a second? Ooh, I think we'll give Kevin this one.
Okay.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Unanimously approved. And we hope to see you back next month on,
Yes.
with some details on the stoop.
On the stoop, okay.
And
very-
I do have a question regarding the painting on that steeple.
Sure.
How much are we talking?
About the cost of the steeple?
Yeah.
The steeple is $50,000, it's just shy of $50,000, about $48,000. And we decided that we really have to wait to spring and see how it goes. And also, you know, when we were estimating the value and the cost of it, there was a lot of wood that was rotted, and all of this stuff had to be replaced with like material and all of that. And we weren't exactly sure what needed to be, but after the scaffold got up, there was some clarity to what needed to be done, and then some price adjustments happened there as well. So that was sort of the scary thing, and that's why we didn't spend money that we didn't feel we had. You know, that's part of why those steps was like, you know, didn't get the appropriate thing. But believe me, I champion those steps. I am always saddened when I go past the, you know, the little house on Crown Street, which lost its stoop, and the stoop that's there is just not appropriate. And, you know, and I rail about that, and I was not going to be committed to the same kind of crime. So I knew that I was responsible for safety, and I do know that we have great intentions to have that stoop properly fitted, so.
And that's important,
Yes.
if you can get a sense of timing, that would
Yeah,
be
yeah,
important.
that
So
would
that's
be good.
by next
Yeah.
month. All right, any other questions for this applicant?
Well, we voted, we're done, so, let me give you my email address, if any questions come up,
Oh, perfect.
can you reach out to me directly, and I can get answers somehow.